A survivor survives within the four walls that she knows.
The survivor understands how to protect themselves more than anyone else.
But once she steps outside those four walls, it's severely frightening.
Grooming is not talked about enough.
I totally agree.
It is a systematic effort that a predator makes to get in a position of trust and power. I mean, a survivor is still standing. A victim didn't make it.
Kara, I want to talk to you about this sad story of a young woman, Jennifer Cobb. She endured many years of grooming and sexual abuse by her coach, and later she took her own life.
She did. And the point of the system is to helping people navigate through.
Where did the system fail her? This episode contains discussions of domestic violence, physical abuse, trauma, and strong language. Viewer discretion is advised. Have you ever felt the justice system has let you down? Our guest today is a trial attorney and a founding board member of Voices of Families for Justice, an Atlanta-based grassroots movement uniting survivors, families, and advocates to protect access to civil justice and push back against efforts to silence victims through tort reform and secrecy agreements. Her work, both in the courtroom and through Voices of Families for Justice, is grounded in the belief that survivors deserve truth, transparency, and choice. She sees civil litigation not just as a path to justice, but as a way to restore power and a voice to those who have been silenced. Her name is Kara Phillips, a partner with Deutsch and Rogers here in Atlanta. She is known for her skill and tenacity in the courtroom and for her belief that jury trials remain one of the few places where ordinary people can hold powerful institutions accountable. Kara, you are clearly an attorney not to be reckoned with. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me, Candy. It's an honor.
Oh, you're very well. I think it's kind of an honor on my side, here to have you. Tell us a little bit about the organization Voices of Families for Justice.
Yeah, well, we formed Voices of Families for Justice because there was clearly a gap in advocacy. We saw places, me and a couple of my colleagues, where the voices of corporations, the voices of insurance companies, and the voices of others powerful within our society drowned out what mothers, fathers, children needed in policymaking and lawmaking. And so Voices is a platform for every story to be told.
So when you say platform for every story to be told, is it attorneys that organize the organization?
So there are attorneys who have worked together to organize Voices alongside just former clients, people who did not have access to civil justice, and others interested in bringing their stories. The attorneys who have been involved are primarily involved to try and put themselves out of business. We want a safer community. We want the same things not to happen over and over again.
So in other words, then, if there's an individual out there that wanted to contact the organization, you'd have a number that they could contact, and we can put that up on the screen for everyone. But I guess I'm a little confused as to, you have this beautiful organization that you helped founded. But if I were to contact you and I was in a domestic violence situation, what could you do for me?
Well, what I can do is provide a platform for you to tell your story, and also look at what could have helped or what can help. Where is the law not addressing this? And how does your story give an illustration of that everyone can understand and see this is something that needs to be changed?
Okay. Was there a moment or an experience that led you to become a founding member of your organization?
Yes. Last year, there was an effort for what's called tort reform in Georgia.
Could you explain tort for the folks that don't know?
Absolutely. Torts are just civil claims for injuries that are caused by one person or corporation to another. And so, whereas if someone does something criminal to you or a loved one, there's recourse through criminal law, torts is the recourse through civil law, which produces money damages. So it's confusing.
Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but...
No, not at all. The gist of it was an effort to make it harder to bring civil claims for people who are hurt on someone's property.
Okay.
And generally in Georgia, the law has been for decades that a property owner owes ordinary care to keep the place safe. So if you go to Phipps to buy some shoes, you expect that if there's any danger that you be warned of it and that they would prevent you from being harmed while you're there.
Right.
And that law changed drastically on April 21st of 2025 when Governor Kemp signed into law SB 68. And those protections are much less than they were a year ago.
So that is a law now?
That is, yeah, the law is different. So they have capped? So it's not a cap. It's essentially where the law required you to jump through a series of hoops to show that the property owner, let's say Phipps, should have kept you safe while you were there. Now those hoops are tenfold. And there's very specific requirements, like there was a physical condition that the perpetrator exploited and the property owner knew, all of these things. And all of it hasn't been tested by the courts yet because the new law is only a year old. But it really hampered the access that ordinary people have to civil justice. And so voices had to happen. And it just happened organically. All the people that I've helped over the past 11 years of representing crime victims came together, and many others throughout the state, and made their voices heard at the Capitol to say, this is going to hurt families. And unfortunately, it passed by one vote through the House of Representatives.
Seriously, one vote.
Yep, but the effort was clear, and the power of all of those families coming together was something that I could not ignore as being just necessary.
Yeah.
And our capital in Georgia and for the nation belongs to the people.
Yes.
And so Voices of Families for Justice is designed to keep that access available for the people.
Yes. I think sometimes people kind of forget that part.
I did. I hadn't been down there, and didn't know where to park and didn't know to bring snacks. And, it's not a particularly hospitable place to go.
Exactly,
unless you get some friends together and you go on the regular. And that's what Voices looks to do.
That's great. That's great. When you sit across from a survivor, and I'm speaking specifically for probably like a domestic violence survivor, what is the first thing that you recognize that most people completely miss?
I think one of the most important things is that a survivor understands how to protect themselves more than anyone else. They are the expert in that, because if they're sitting across from me, they've already done a lot.
Yeah.
And I think through my work, I've recognized how many people don't get to that point.
Yeah.
And so the first thing I do is just commend them. They're there. And it's because their brains protected them, their wherewithal protected them, their experience protected them, and whatever choices had to be made during that process that got them to where they're across from me, alive and breathing, it's because they are a survivor, and they've done that, and they've done it themselves.
That's what I always say is that, a survivor survives within the four walls that she knows. She knows how to manipulate and to move through that to keep things calm most of the time. But she knows how to survive within those four walls. Yeah. But once she steps outside those four walls, out to the outdoors, it's severely frightening. And for a survivor to even sit across from an attorney to begin with is a huge step. Yes. And then to be received by an attorney that understands that what she has gone through is for me, that would be absolutely wonderful. For my particular situation, I did not have that.
And so many don't.
No.
So many don't.
No, they don't.
But the courage to step outside of those walls and to navigate a system that's not designed for you.
Yeah.
It's daunting, and it takes help.
Yeah.
And I am honored to help where I can, because
That's
I know
wonderful.
that it's unkind.
That's wonderful. That is absolutely wonderful. Yeah, it just brings back so many memories of when I was sitting across from two different attorneys that were certainly not there to help me in any way.
Well, and I think, the profession is difficult, and there is an old way to do things, but I'm more and more pleased with how attorneys are recognizing things like becoming trauma-informed, realizing that the business of law is not the end-all be-all to being an attorney, and ultimately practicing in this space requires a level of care and empathy and dedication that it doesn't really matter how it plays out in the end financially, because it is so rewarding to be one little help in the life of someone who's courageous enough to change their story.
If a survivor is looking for an attorney, what is the best way for her to do that? Proceed to find one that's going to give her compassion, that's going to help her. How would she go about that?
It's a hard question, and I'll say I myself have been in the position before of looking for an attorney, and it is not easy. I would suggest, first and foremost, looking for someone who is trauma-informed or who has a focus and understands the impact of trauma on decision-making and willingness to navigate through that. That's one of the search terms I would want to put in. And then also see how they talk through their website or podcasts or other things, and whether they have a recognition of the difference between a survivor and a victim. I mean, a survivor is still standing. A victim didn't make it. And just because something has happened to you doesn't make you a victim. And that's the kind of language that is like a little breadcrumb to getting to where you need to go. And also talk to someone you can trust, if there is someone, because they'll help you find a trustworthy attorney.
Yeah, because most survivors, when you get to that point when they're ready to reach out to seek an attorney, advice, they're so fearful. They're fearful of everything. The fear once they step outside that door, the fear of, sitting across from an attorney that is in an authoritative position, and she has no self-worth or no self-confidence, that in itself is a feat for her to be able to do.
Absolutely.
And then that's why I wanted to know what would be the best way for her to find an attorney that was going to hold her hand and listen to her and listen to her story and not brush her off or, refer her to someone else or something like that. Would Voices be appropriate for someone to call?
Absolutely. Voices would be able to also, we're in coalition with other groups. So there are domestic violence groups throughout the city and the state of Georgia and nationwide. There are resources like RAIN and other resources like that for sexual assault survivors. That absolutely, we are here to try and just help whatever the next step is. And if that's trying to just find someone to help hold the hand through the process, let's do it.
Okay.
Absolutely.
That's wonderful. That's great.
Yeah.
Because I know there's the hotline, that they can call and that sort of thing. And I've had some folks from the various different organizations here in Atlanta on my podcast. And, that's one thing that they say, just give us a call. We will meet you where you are. We're not going to tell you what to do. We're going to give you suggestions and meet you where you are. If they just wanted to talk, or just wanted somebody to listen, to them, then that's what they would give them, which I think is absolutely wonderful. But I just know from experience, though, even though you reached out to the resource center, you're sitting in front of that attorney, this authoritative person, and you are so mentally, physically, beat down that takes a lot of courage for survivors to do that, and that's why I would hope that the attorneys would be receiving and aware that that's what they're feeling.
Well, and that's something I personally am very passionate about, also helping attorneys understand the importance of becoming trauma informed.
Yeah.
Because what you're describing, I understand just from being a mother of a patient at a doctor's office. The doctor has the information.
Yeah.
I don't know it. If they're telling me X, Y, Z is what needs to happen, I still need to understand.
Yeah.
And so the empowering of understanding that this is a system that we have to navigate, and here are the steps, and every part of it is your decision. And it's your case, and here's what I see I can do to help. That's what every person needs from an attorney. And so,
Yes.
giving opportunities to have attorneys on both sides, defense attorneys and plaintiffs' attorneys, become more trauma informed is something that I and my law partners have actually held trainings for at our office.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And just open them up to judges, whomever, please come, because the more you know about what the person across the desk from you has
Yes.
experienced, the better you can help them.
Yes. And Voices would be able to help a survivor choose that attorney.
Absolutely.
Or give some choices.
And most any domestic violence shelter or other resource, if you ask them for civil attorneys that they know and trust, they should have a list. I know I'm on the list for like Mosaic and the Cottage and other sexual assault places, and being able to talk to more than one attorney if you can handle it, and it is worthwhile, because you don't know if it's a fit till it's a fit.
Yes. Yeah, I know the Women's Resource Center does have a list of attorneys, that they do supply, the survivors with there. Kara, I want to talk to you about a sad story of a young woman, Jennifer Cobb.
Yeah.
Here in Atlanta. She endured many years of grooming and sexual abuse by her coach that was supposed to teach her how to play soccer.
It was a gymnastics coach.
It was a gymnastics coach?
Yes. Yeah, her gymnastics coach.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Mm-hmm. And later she took her own life.
She did.
Can you where did the system fail her?
Well, Jennifer Cobb is a beautiful being, and as a young 11-year-old was a fantastic little gymnast, and she loved her coach Bob, who was at the local YMCA, and trusted him.
At the YMCA?
Yeah, the local YMCA. And she trusted him, and those around him trusted him, because he was able to groom not only a child, but the other coaches and parents to be in a position of trust. And through that, he was able to take the steps that a groomer takes, which grooming is not talked about enough.
I totally agree.
It is a systematic effort that a predator makes to get in a position of trust and power over another, and then starts increasingly using it to exploit, manipulate, and sexually abuse that person. And watching for the signs of grooming is something that small communities, and sometimes larger communities too, simply don't do. And putting protections in place so that children aren't the ones who are the stopgap is incredibly important. And organizations like the YMCA know that and have known that for decades. And unfortunately, in this instance, did not step in while they were the ones who knew and the parents didn't. And so that gave this coach an opportunity to ruin Jennifer Cobb's life, which she was able to see and come forward and talk to the authorities about, and have him arrested and indicted, and provide evidence about what he had done for a long time. But she was in one of the bond proceedings where he was looking to get out on house arrest, and she was put on the stand to be asked by the judge, "Are you just doing this because you're jealous?" And that broke her. And she was able to say, "No, I'm doing it to protect others." But she was in her shower, dead 6 days later.
Even with the evidence that she presented with?
There's no reason that needed to happen. But it did, and ultimately, he was put on house arrest. And so whether it's a good example of the system not protecting those that need to be protected. The question of whether someone needs to sit in a stand in open court who's been abused, groomed and abused from the age of 11.
Is she at 11? How old was she?
She was 20 at the time that she was in court. But
she carried that.
Absolutely. And aspects of her psyche, and I'm not a mental health professional, but we know trauma can freeze people into
the frontal
a place.
lobe shut down. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And so just the question, like, do we need this testimony now? Can we move forward without it? What best does as little harm as possible? That is what the system doesn't think of enough, and that's what trauma-informed attorneys, judges, prosecutors, law enforcement needs to take into consideration when helping. I mean, the point of the system is to helping people navigate through.
Sometimes I think that word help kind of gets thrown to the side. So what happened to this coach? What ended up happening to him?
Well, there was a long time where the family was very concerned absolutely nothing would happen to him. And that's,
I mean, Jennifer's family?
Yes.
Okay.
And Jennifer's mother, Susan Cobb, has been a zealous advocate on behalf of others that nothing like what happened to her daughter should happen to any other child. She has worked to have a law passed around grooming in the state of Georgia.
Has she?
She has.
Has it been passed?
It did pass, and it, for the first time, recognizes the action. She also was very active in speaking out against the tort reform efforts last year and talked about the impact it would have on a case like the case involving her daughter.
Yes.
Because the Cobbs were worried that nothing was going to be done to hold anyone accountable, they hired my law firm, and we were able to hold the YMCA accountable under civil law while waiting for the criminal system to resolve. God. But ultimately, this past January, Bob Green was convicted of every count of a child molestation and more, and sentenced.
January 2026.
Yes.
And Jennifer passed away when?
In June of 2021. So it took a long time, and there was a long time where it wasn't clear that it would be done. But the Hart County DA and his office did an excellent job presenting the case. The jury held him accountable to the full extent of the law, and the judge sentenced him to the full extent of the law. So justice was done.
He's currently in prison.
He is.
Thank goodness. So tell me about the law that Jennifer's mom had passed.
So it was in, I believe, 2024 that she had a grooming bill passed, and it was with the help of Governor Kemp, and they worked together. I think that Bo Hatchett may have helped with that, her representative from up there. And it was just to make sure that there was something on the books that identified this as a predatory behavior. And so it was the first step in advocacy for the Cobb family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Wow. Strong parents.
Well,
they were on a mission and they took care of it.
That's exactly right. And I think that
for them.
They see it as Jennifer's strength and power.
Sure.
Yeah.
Wow. From a legal standpoint, what are the biggest barriers that survivors face when they're trying to leave their abuser?
Well, I think that the thing that you said earlier is really important, being able to survive within the four corners and knowing for themselves what is safe and what isn't safe. And knowing a path that doesn't put them in a worse position than they're already in. Mm-hmm. You know, the devil that I know is safer than the devil that I don't know.
Yeah.
And so I think that one of the biggest barriers is information. And the more information that you can have about how the system works and what you can and can't do is really what every survivor needs. It's what every person that comes into my office, I look to give them whether I can help them or not. Mm-hmm. It's what Voices of Families for Justice looks to do, is the more information you have to understand how things work in the system, the stronger you are going to be to navigate what's right for you. Mm-hmm. Because what's right for you as a survivor may be different than what's right for me as a survivor.
Correct.
And recognizing that, I think, is something that the law fails at, because it treats everyone as though they're the same.
And there's various different levels.
Absolutely.
You have the woman that can barely speak, or the woman that will nonstop talking. there.
Very highly functional members of
Yes.
society have things going on behind closed doors that are horrific. And sometimes, that gilded cage can make it even harder to get out.
That's what's just so amazing to me, that the stuff that goes on behind closed doors. Because I remember my father saying to me, what happens in this house stays in this house. So it put the fear of God in us. For God forbid we would say, tell our teacher or tell someone, a neighbor, a friend, what was going on inside the house.
Right. Secrecy is the first tool to coercion. And shame.
Very true.
Shame can only live in secrecy. If spoken, it loses its power. And that sort of juggernaut of control and coercion is usually the baseline for whatever is happening. And recognizing that you can't have your control taken from you, you can only give it. And that may mean different things to different people.
Yes.
But ultimately it's true. And figuring out where you can go and hold on to your own control, maintain your own autonomy, even if it's tiny little things, those can be the steps to get you to where you need to be.
Yeah. Have you ever experienced a situation where the abuser is more protected by the system than the survivor? Just speaking of Jennifer.
Absolutely.
What does that actually look like in the courtroom?
Well, it can look like a big fancy lawyer on one side and nobody on the other side, often. Worst case scenario. It can look like, people who know the judge and everyone else and people who don't know them. The law provides a grounds for a great equalizer, but it also is something that can be manipulated just like any other system. And it happens all too often. Even just children being involved in the scenario can cause great injustice and great disparity between what two people have when it comes to support by the legal system.
Yeah. That's why always a good idea to have a good trauma lawyer with you.
It is.
Somebody like you that can stand up and say, no, this is not going to work today.
It absolutely is. And I find myself sometimes, I went to magistrate court the other day, probably about 2 months ago, just ended up there to help a woman who had been involved in a domestic violence situation and was being dispossessed from where she was staying, even though there was a protective order that said she should stay there. And so, but when I go into a courtroom like that and I see how things so often work, it is so important to see if you can find a lawyer to help you, to talk to, even if it's Atlanta Legal Aid, find a resource to see if you can have representation, because representation in the courtroom really is the difference between having a voice and not having a voice, even in magistrate court, which is supposed to be the people's court. It's supposed to be where people can go and do the same thing. But the disparity is there. And every time I go into a courtroom, I feel honored to write the disparity for whomever I'm sitting with.
Wow. The court system is always, it's a very complex, thing. And it's unfortunate because I think it blocks, survivors or victims of domestic violence also too, there's such fear because that looks like it's like that big courthouse with those big attorneys and they're talking all of this verbiage that I have no idea what they're saying and that can be overwhelming. But if you've got a good attorney such as you that's going to hold that person's hand, that's half the battle.
That is half the battle. I don't know if it's meant to be confusing, but it is hard even just physically to navigate through the courthouse. And I understand and know that feeling. And it is important to have someone with you. Yeah. And even if you can't find an attorney, talking to a victim advocate within one of the domestic violence groups, like just having some support. Somebody
there to support you.
Absolutely. It's well worth it. And The courts are there for the people, and remembering that it might not feel like it's there for you,
Right.
but it is meant to provide protections to you. And navigating through can be hard, but if you find someone to help you navigate, it can work to your advantage. And at minimum, it should not hurt you.
Yeah.
At minimum.
Yeah. Yeah. For someone listening who feels like their system has failed them, what would you want them to understand about the options or their voice?
First, I would just normalize the fact that it has failed them. If you think it's failed you, then it's failed you, and you're not alone. The only thing that we can do is make a better system and make our voice heard about how the failure happened. Where's the breakdown? Where is the place that the law needs to protect people and not something else? And that's what Voices of Families for Justice is designed to do. That's what some of these domestic violence advocacy groups throughout the state look to do every single legislative session at the state level, and then their efforts nationwide as well. So, the first thing is do whatever's best for you, but when you're ready, your story matters. Your voice can be heard, and your experience could help someone else have a different experience. And I think that there's real power there.
Yeah, and I think, such organizations like Voices or like the podcast or many other podcasts are on, the more we talk about it, the more we make it aware. Because, I've said numerous times, every time I go to a speaking engagement or a book signing or whatever, there is at least 1 to 3 women that will come up and just touch my arm and say, I'm one of these. They can't even verbalize that they have been abused because of the shame and the guilt. That's why it's so important for us to continue to talk about this, and this wonderful organization like Voices that can help a family navigate the craziness of the legal system, there. I think you kind of perfectly put it when you talk about, you're a mom, you took your children to the doctor, and the doctor's talking about, this is what's going on, you don't quite understand, there. And I think that's what everybody needs to do, just as you, is to stop the doc, and say, I know you have another 15 patients here, but I'm the mom of this child, and I need to understand. And I think that's what other survivors should do as well, is that they don't understand what their attorney is saying. They don't understand the verbiage, what's being told by the judge, there. Speak up.
That's right.
And say, I don't understand. And it's okay to say, I don't understand.
It is, and to know that you are the expert in what surviving looks like for you. And so every spidey sense, every concern, that doesn't feel right, is valid. Every time it's valid. Using the example, when I bring my children to the doctor and they say, oh, well, we're just going to take them into the x-ray room. I'm not allowing my child to go with a stranger to an x-ray room that's dark and I can't see. And that's just me as a mama.
Right.
I have no medical training or experience, nor do I need it. I just know that child's not leaving my sight.
Right.
And that is equally valid when you're dealing with the legal system. Your rights shouldn't leave your sight. And if you don't understand them, then someone needs to explain it to you. And that is valid.
And it's okay to speak up and say, I do not understand.
It is.
Please explain to me. Even if there's craziness going on in the courtroom or whatever, you're the one that's important right there at that particular time. And you need to understand if the judge says something that you don't understand, there. You need to tug on your attorney's coat and say, help me understand this. I can't hear anymore. You need to explain this to me first.
That's exactly right. Because also, if you're just trusting them to just know and you don't know, but they don't know what's best for you, you aren't going to get where you need to be.
Yeah.
So it's so important. There's no shame in saying, I don't understand this. You know what? The attorney might not know. And then where is everybody?
Right.
The judge might be confused. Then where is everybody? So it's your knowledge and understanding and comfort about what is happening is really the first bedrock of something being done properly.
Yeah, I think it was speaking with a lot of various different survivors, and every survivor story is different. You know, their situation is different, but there's one commonality, and that's the children. If there's children involved, that really creates a more difficult situation in some instances where the abuser may utilize the children. That's the commonality is the children. To always use the children.
It's a highly coercive tool that is so troubling. And, you know, if you're dealing with someone who has really got a problem, then they will not mind using that tool.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the system doesn't have a real mechanism to protect that. I will say that it's the antithesis of what an abusive situation looks like is the most powerful component. Building community, having the outside eyes and ears and voices to help you look to do what's best for your children in that context and hold the boundaries that you have to create and hold. It's incredibly difficult, but the more that I see someone who has had systematically been isolated, the less likely they are to be able to not let that coercive hold take over. And it's so destructive on the children, and that's something that a parent's heart, you know, can't handle.
Yeah, especially a mom.
I would say especially a mom. And I've spoken to dads too, where it's just, you know, it's being ripped apart. And if the parents can get past whatever it is and just do what they can to make something that works for those kids, like that, the system should support that every time. And you know, I always say, if you have to use a little manipulation to deal with a little manipulation, then, you know, get whatever needs to happen.
That's why I say, you know, that's a good thing that we have smartphones. You know,
these days, yeah.
Sometimes in those four walls, they come in very handy when you push record, and you can show proof.
Yes, yeah, and do it safely.
Exactly, definitely safely, because. If you're married or involved with a narcissistic sociopath, they're so good at what they do and hiding things. So that cell phone would come in handy, you know.
Well, and it's not trite, but it kind of sounds trite when you're talking about an environment like that. But the most important thing is taking care of yourself and building your resilience.
Yes.
And so the small things like feeding yourself, hydrating yourself, getting as much rest as you can, that gives you that G.I. Jane able to get through whatever the thing is.
That's very true.
And the moments where you just feel crushed and like you're going to let yourself go, that's when you're going to go.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree. I like that what you said, G.I. Jane.
I think of her doing those one-arm push-ups.
Yeah, exactly. You know? Yeah, it was a Demi Moore and that movie. Yeah. That's so true. But that really is you know, I hadn't really thought about that in a while, is that becoming something as simple as hydrated. Because when you're being abused and trying to survive every minute of the day, you're worried about feeding your children and making them happy. You're not really caring for yourself.
That's right.
But you've got to keep yourself, you know, mentally together there to be able to think properly, to do the things what you need to do in order to protect you and your children.
That's right. It's the first act of resistance.
There you go.
Is caring for yourself.
There you go. But a lot of women think, you know, they don't want to care for themselves, that it's the responsibility to care for everyone else instead of them.
Right.
You know, but that is so true.
But what is it when the airplane demonstration, if you don't put the mask on yourself, you can't put it on your child.
That's it. Exactly. Very good analogy. Very good. I like the G.I. Jane. I'm going to have to use that more.
Well, I've had some clients who have been on the inside, spent some time in prison. And so I've spent a little time thinking about what can you do within the four walls of a prison.
Yeah.
And it's not where you want to be.
Yeah.
But if you find yourself there for a season, whatever your prison looks like, the first thing that you have control over is yourself.
Yeah. Because really in that particular situation, I would think that you don't have any control. But if you can get your mind wrapped around that and realize that you are in control and you can be, then it give you that G.I. Jane.
That's right. That's right. They can't get into your mind.
What guidance would you give a woman that is thinking about leaving? She hasn't got quite there, but just thinking about leaving there. Is there particular documents, things that she should get in order, that sort of thing?
Well, I would say safety plan is step one. What are the steps that keep you safe? And how do we have a plan B and a plan C and a plan D? Is your home environment a place that has safety mechanisms? Are you in an apartment complex that has a management office, for example? Is that someone that you can utilize to help keep you safe? Can you go and get a temporary protective order? Is that a route to become safe? So I would say safety planning and gathering information. Those would be my first two steps.
Okay.
And know that you are the expert about how you can survive.
So when you say gather information, would you say that's documentation, pictures, videos, anything like that?
That you can get safely.
Okay.
If you have the ability to do an escape route that just gets you cleanly out of there, that keeps you safe, I would say that's number one. You can rebuild every other aspect of your life, but you can't put yourself back together.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. If you could stand in front of every judge, jury, and attorney tomorrow, what is the one truth about domestic violence you would want them to finally understand?
Just because it doesn't make sense to you, in your experience, how this person is responding, it doesn't mean that it's not valid. It doesn't mean it isn't the exact way that she or he is surviving something that you just don't understand. And so just admitting it is fine. I don't understand every life experience that you have. You don't understand every life experience that I have, but we do have common ground somewhere. And the first thing to do with that is just empathy. Where can you connect with the story of this survivor?
Yeah.
And I have connection points with children. There are places where my children, if they're in any kind of danger, I will do things that don't seem to make any sense, right? And I think I've been in CHOA with no shoes on before, holding my son, and not having shoes on was like the last thing on my mind.
Yeah.
But you sitting there might be like, how could you leave the house without shoes?
Yeah.
You have to put yourself in a position where you can imagine. Can you imagine a scenario where you end up just without shoes out in public? Because that's the level of terror, of trauma, of who cares, I have got to go, that I felt when I walked out that door holding my son. And then we've got a connection point.
Good answer. I love that. Kara, after everything you've seen in the courtroom and beyond, what is the one truth you wish every survivor could hold on to when they feel like the system or even the world has failed them?
They don't deserve what happened to them. They deserve peace.
Yeah.
Nothing that they've done causes it to be okay that they're dealing with what they're dealing with. And like every other human, they deserve to have peace. And they may not get it in 6 hours or 6 months or 6 years, but it is not deserved where they are, and they do deserve peace.
That's wonderful. The other thing I would like to add to that is that they totally deserve the peace, there. But I've talked with some women, and some women will say, well, I'm not sure if I was abused bad enough. Or, I've heard other stories where their abuse was worse than mine. And
Trauma comparison.
Yeah. And so they want to minimize their pain. And I say to them, I don't care if he slapped your arm the wrong way. or if he put his hands around your throat. It doesn't matter. That's abuse.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And sometimes the less obvious is the harder to get out of.
Because they're very good at manipulating that.
That's right. I've dealt with and worked with a lot of therapists and psychologists, and there is no comparison to the trauma experience. Every experience that is traumatic, that's yours or mine, causes trauma, and we can't compare. And it's our brains trying to say, oh, let's get it going. It's not as bad as what they went through, so we can do it.
Right.
Which is it's a survival mechanism, and it's big, beautiful brains helping us out. But it doesn't lessen the experience, and there's no reason to compare. And if anything, if you start comparing, I think you recognize the similarities more. And trying to differentiate yourself will actually probably bring you a little bit to recognize how close an abuse that looks terrible is to an abuse that is not a big deal.
Yeah. Everybody deserves peace.
Absolutely.
Just as you said. Thank you so much for being here today, Kara.
Thank you for having me.
So appreciate you. I know you're super busy, but I so appreciate you being here and taking the time out of your busy day to help spread this message of the legal system.
Well, thank you for what you're doing, Candy, because it's doing what I said is most important, and that's giving information to people who need it so that they know how to keep themselves safe.
Yeah. Let's keep talking.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Kara, thank you, not only for fighting for justice in the courtroom, but standing beside survivors with compassion, strength, and unwavering belief. Their voices need to be heard. As we close today's conversation, I hope one message is heard clearly. Survivors do not need judgment. They need to be believed. Too many women suffer in silence, terrified that when they finally speak up, no one will listen or believe them. My memoir, Not One More Day, shares my personal journey through abuse, survival, and healing, and what it truly took to finally find my voice. And to the women listening quietly right now, you are not invisible, you are not alone, and your voice deserves to be heard. Because healing begins where silence ends. And always remember, you matter. Hi, how are you?
Good.
Great to see you. Thank you so much for coming.
Oh, no more taking away her power. Not one more day, her new theme. She's living wide awake in a dream.